Alright guys, for today it's Monday, so you're going to do final assessment days 6 and 7. So this is due Tuesday, tomorrow night at 11:59 p.m. I'm going to open up this Google Doc, I'm going to go to File, I'm going to go to Make a Copy, I'm going to name it my last name, and then paragraph 1 of my theme analysis. Now that I've made a copy, I can go ahead and edit it. So you are going to think about the scene that you have already modernized. Don't pick a different scene. Pick the same scene, the scene that you know really well. And you're going to think about a theme or an idea that you see in that passage. So that idea might be love. If you have a scene between Romeo and Juliet, it's probably going to be a theme of love, where they describe each other with all these poetic things. It could also be a theme of death. If you're picking a Friar Lawrence scene, he very often talks about death, whether that's making the potion for Juliet to look like she's dead, or if it's at the very end of the play where he explains why Romeo and Juliet died. For identity, this could be when it's the balcony scene, and it's Romeo and Juliet says, "Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo?" Or, "Why are you called Romeo?" It doesn't matter what you're called, it matters who you are. So that's an idea of identity. It could be revenge, marriage, family, violence is another big one. So you're just going to pick one of these themes here to talk about in the scene that you've already analyzed. Now, today and tomorrow, you're only doing paragraph 1. 8 sentences long, but there are no quotes. Don't worry about quotes. That'll be for Wednesday and Thursday. You'll worry about quotes. But for today, no quotes. Part A, just give me a summary of the entire play of Romeo and Juliet. Be sure to include the author's name. This can be a couple sentences long. So I give you the sentence starters. William Shakespeare's play, Romeo and Juliet, is about. And I'm going to write that down here in this box where it says to write my paragraph. So I would write William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet is about, and then I would give a summary of what it's about. After I'm done with that, B, explain the theme that you chose. So I've got to look back at this box. If I chose my theme of love, I have to explain what that theme is and where it's seen throughout the story and who does the theme affect. So let's say I finished that previous sentence. In the story, the theme of love is seen when Romeo and Juliet first meet, and then I would list a few other things about where else I see love. We also see that Paris loves Juliet, but she doesn't love him back. We see that Romeo was in love with Rosalind, but she doesn't love him back. So both of these two, Romeo and Juliet, were kind of scorned lovers. So I can talk about where I see love throughout the story. The theme of love is this idea of building a really strong relationship between people, so I might talk about that. Remember, I need 8 sentences, so feel free to take up a few sentences to talk about each of these things. C, it says, explain in more detail what's going on in the scene that you selected, the scene that you modernized in part 1 and part 2. How does it affect the rest of the play? So now I talk about this scene. So let's say I talked about the balcony scene. So I would say in the story, the balcony scene is really important because it's the first time that Romeo and Juliet got to actually speak to one another away from everyone else. At the party, they could only say so much, and at the party, it was kind of love at first sight. So now they're finally alone. They can talk to each other about how much they love each other, even though they just met. So that's kind of why it's an important part. It also really shows the theme of love, right? Part D says, explain in more detail how this scene that you chose demonstrates that theme that you chose, which we just explained, and that's it. So make sure that you say this: Romeo visiting Friar Lawrence's cell demonstrates the theme of blank because, so then you would say Romeo visiting Juliet on her balcony demonstrates the theme of love because, and then you would explain that. And this is kind of like your thesis statement. So that's your first paragraph. Make sure it's 8 sentences. If you've got questions, you can always ask me, but it's due Tuesday, tomorrow night at 11:59 p.m.